Boop-a-doop, it's story time! I like that intro. I like it. I'm gonna stick with it. Back in February 2008, I decided that I needed a change in my monotonous life. Whether that change would come in the form of a new job or a new toothbrush, I didn't know. I was never the most adventurous person. I have always found it difficult to veer away from my comfort zone, and the limit of my existence usually depended upon which book I was reading at the time. It took me a while to realize that my happiness often derived from the stories that my mind was living in. I was an avid bookworm, as miserable as that is. Once I realized my true outlet, I immediately knew what I wanted. I purchased a small shop, quit my boring job, renovated the building, and transformed it into a bookstore. I had never been happier. The next 2 years were the best of my life. The store had become a huge hit with the locals. My perspective on work had been completely altered, and I was feeling genuinely happy for the first time since my childhood. It was during the winter of 2010 that she walked into my store. She stepped inside out of the snow and approached me with a large bin bag. Etchings of age covered her pale face and hands. She must have been at least 80 years old. Slamming the bag on the counter, she simply said, "These are for you." I looked inside the bag to find a selection of some of the greatest novels ever written. "Why? Do you want money for these, or some kind of book trade?" "No, they're yours to have. Take them." She gave me a feeling of uneasiness. Her dirty gray fringe slightly concealed her face as a cold gaze met my vision. "Are you sure you want me to have them? Wouldn't you rather sell them?" "No, I have no use for them, nor for money." "Okay, thank you. What's your name?" "Lucy." She muttered her final words and left my store. I found it all too strange that somebody would give away such great books for nothing, but I suppose some people are just nice. I made my way home that night and took the books with me so I could go through them. I piled them up on the table and was surprised to see that all of them were in fantastic condition. A couple of them seemed to be first editions, and others were versions that I had never seen before. It took me a moment to realize, but the novels that I was looking at were not as how I remembered them to be. The first book that I picked up was The Green Mile. On the front cover, there was an image of John Coffey smiling and holding two dead, naked girls. I opened it up and flicked through the pages. In this version of the novel, he was, in fact, guilty of the rape and murder of both children. I made my way to the end of the book and read through the execution scene. All the officers who had originally grown to love John Coffey in the original novel were now laughing uncontrollably and screaming racial taunts as he was being executed. My eyes had seen enough, and my stomach had felt enough too. The next book that I picked up was The Catcher in the Rye. The artwork upon the front page seemed to be of a dead body splattered on the street, drawn from an aerial view. I flicked through the book until I reached chapter 14. After Holden Caulfield speaks of messing with the idea of suicide, he suddenly breaks down in tears and jumps from the window, cracking his skull on the pavement below. The book ended abruptly after that. I then picked up Lord of the Flies. The defining image of this novel was a large child with the face of a pig. It was covered in blood and surrounded by decaying corpses. After gazing through the pages, I reached a point in the story in which Piggy is described as being non-human, vicious, and a hungry animal. A chapter or so later, Jack insults Piggy, which leads him to losing his temper and ripping him apart. Piggy then proceeds to kill and eat the rest of the children. The remainder of the book was the same line repeated over and over. Piggy sat alone on the island. waiting for death. I read through the few books that were left in the pile, and they'd all been changed in some sick way. The Great Gatsby, Wuthering Heights, To Kill a Mockingbird, Ulysses, every one of them. Just as I reached the bottom of the pile, I noticed that the final book was one that I've never heard of before. It was called Last of the Sparks. I find this slightly unnerving as I immediately paired it with my name, Aaron Sparks. Still, it was just a book. The front cover was 6 gravestones with words too small to be read etched in the granite. I looked up in the top corner of the book and noticed that there was a sell-by date on it. 6/4/2013. I nervously opened it up to the beginning of the story. Chapter 1. Alice Sparks. My stomach dropped as I read my mother's name upon the page. I felt dizzy and confused, and as I anxiously made my way through the chapter, it seemed to detail a regular day in the life of the character. Until I reached the last page, however. Alice was crossing over the road when her heel of her shoe broke, causing her to fall. She didn't get to her feet fast enough, and a speeding car struck her, puncturing both of her lungs. I felt sick to my stomach. I put the book down and got straight to bed, hoping for some sleep. I lay awake all night as countless questions ran through my mind. The only thought that managed to put me to sleep was, it's just a book. The next morning when I got into work, I was feeling worse for wear. It wasn't until around lunchtime that I started to perk up and regain a little bit of energy. Then the phone rang. I answered the call to my father crying on the other end. I immediately knew what had happened. I closed the shop and ran to the hospital, but it was already too late. She was gone. Hit by a speeding driver, they said. I spent the next couple of weeks taking care of my dad. Me and my brother and sisters stayed with him in turn and looked after him. We all looked after each other, actually. It wasn't until a few months later that I picked up Last of the Sparks. It scared me so much the last time. I opened up to page 37. There it was. Chapter 2. Patrick Sparks. The story was more of the same, a day in the life, right up until the part where he shot himself in the kitchen while on the phone to his son. I ran on the phone to speak to him, comfort him. But then I realized what I may be doing. The phone picked up at the other end, and before I could say a word, he was gone. I got my black suit and tie out once more and repeated the same process for another parent. It ruined us all. After the funeral, I refused to touch the book. What if I had been causing these deaths by reading it? I couldn't go through it all again. On Christmas Eve of 2011, I got a phone call from my brother's wife, Heather. Will had been putting up Christmas lights on the roof when he slipped on ice and broke his neck. He died almost instantly. Damn it, I threw the phone at the wall and began to sob in my sleeve. Anger took the pain away for a moment as I picked up the book and read through chapter 3. It was exactly as Heather described. I fell asleep and woke up the next day with the book on my lap. I decided to check who was going to be next out of me and my sisters and hopefully warn them or myself in some way. I turned the page. Chapter 4. Mary and Sarah Sparks. I rushed through the story as fast as I could until I reached the end. Both of them and their partners were drowned in a lake after colliding with another car on a one-way bridge. That same sickly feeling took over me. I met with my sisters later that day to exchange gifts, and I told them as calmly as I could to be careful while driving. I had to sound as sane as possible while mentioning the lake, the bridge, and the fact that all 4 of them would be in the car at the same time. But at least I told them. Mary and Sarah drowned 8 months later in August 2012. After I went to the funeral, I picked up the book, turned to the final pages. Chapter 5. Aaron Sparks. but I didn't read it. I'd rather not live in fear for so long, so I decided to save it for nearer the time. After all, there was a sell-by date on it for a reason. Everything's been normal for the past few months or so, though I've lost my interest in reading, so I'm back to my old miserable self. I've questioned myself every day as to why she was doing this to me. But it didn't matter. It was all going to be over soon anyway. Just finished reading the final chapter. It's now 6/4/2013. I'm sitting in my basement, waiting for it to arrive. That's how the ending goes. Or so I've read. On March 12, 2007, on the B board of 4chan, an anonymous user posted a GIF image. At first glance, strangely, the GIF image wasn't animated. It was titled, "I'm Happy.GIF," and showed what appeared to be a drawing of a smiley face, only with realistic looking eyes and mouth. People who clicked on it saw the smiley face slowly turn into a frown, and the eyes taking on an angrier appearance. The smiley face would then scream loudly, loud enough to burst eardrums, and gruesome images of extreme gore would flash by quickly. After about 5 minutes, it would show the text, "Have a nice day," and the user's computer would automatically close out of the browser and would stop working, as if a virus had corrupted the hard drive. People whose computers were infected would shortly be found in their homes skinned and mutilated, with a smiley face painted in blood on the floor next to the corpses. The founder of 4chan, Moot, would always claim that the picture never existed, and that the murders were unrelated. However, somewhere in the archives, the pictures still exist. Most people who attempt to post it are swiftly banned by Moot.